Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Peters. I'm the digital marketing strategist here at Buffer. Super excited today. We have an awesome Facebook Live event for you. I am joined currently by two Pinterest experts. They work at Pinterest, Aaron Rue and Leon Lin. Aaron and Leon, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
For sure. It's our pleasure. So, Pinterest marketing, I feel like it's this huge topic, so much to learn. And today, basically, we're going to be covering some, what we're like to call insider tips, because it's literally coming from the Pinterest team about how you can succeed with Pinterest marketing, everything you need to know from the art of the pin, creating boards, SEO tips, everything in between. And if you're watching this live video later, thank you so much for being here with us today. If you have any questions for the Pinterest team, Aaron and Leon, feel free to drop them in the comments below. We'll be answering them as we go along. And we're also going to save some time at the end of this broadcast to answer your questions live. So feel free to drop any questions, comments, thoughts as we go along, and Aaron and Leon will answer them as we go. But basically, let's just get right into it, gentlemen, shall we? I think we should start sort of the top level, right? So like Pinterest marketing, Pinterest, the platform. So what would you say, before we get into the actual details, what are some top line advice? What is some top line advice you have for marketers and businesses?
Yeah, sure. I'll take this one. Just a quick introduction for everyone. My name's Aaron Rue, and I'm our content business development and strategy lead. For us, content creators like Buffer users are really what makes Pinterest the best place for people to discover and do what they love. Ultimately, we really want your content and your ideas on Pinterest because we feel like that's what sparks people's creativity, and it's ultimately what leads to people trying and getting excited about new things. There's no Pinterest without content creators. So this year, we're really refocusing our efforts on meeting your needs. And we've heard your feedback about how it isn't really clear how to build your business on Pinterest. And so we're developing new creator tools and resources to help drive traffic back to you. I think one of the big questions we get a lot is, how do you start on Pinterest? How do you get started? I think there's a few ways that we'd like to, a few concrete pieces of feedback we'd like to give. The first is add the save button to your website. The save button helps people save your website's content directly to Pinterest. When you install that button on your website, a clickable Pinterest logo will actually appear on your website's images, which makes it much easier for users to click that logo and then save your content straight to their Pinterest boards. So really, the consumers of your website and your content are doing your work for you by bringing your content onto Pinterest themselves. And we've actually seen with a lot of content creators and businesses, they're shocked by how much of their content is actually already on Pinterest and being distributed through Pinterest using this mechanism. The second piece of advice I'd give is just build out your profile. I know it's intimidating, but start from scratch and really upload as much of your content as possible onto Pinterest and continue doing that. One of the things we've seen with Pinterest is there's just evergreen content. The half-life of content on Pinterest is a very long time, typically about 6 months compared to some other platforms where, if people don't see it within a day or two, it disappears. I think the third piece of feedback we'd like to give is just when you build your profile, make sure to claim your business account and claim your domain. These two things, these two actions to us help demonstrate to us that you're a content creator that we should be investing in and will lead to incremental distribution. And then I think the last piece of advice I'd give is just pin frequently. We like people who pin a lot. The Pinterest browser button and the Buffer Chrome extension both help. We recommend pinning from your own domain at least once a week. And then, we also value your ability as a curator. So don't just pin content from your own domain, pin content that's coming from other people where, that content resonates with your brand. And pin content from your other social networks, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can bring all of that content onto Pinterest and we'll give additional incremental distribution for that content.
Awesome. Aaron, so much to unpack there. Thank you for all the top level tips and tricks. And I think it's amazing to me, and I don't think people realize this that often, is that the half-life of content on Pinterest is 6 months at least, right? So like you're seeing that long-term traffic. And Leon, I think you're going to, if you want to introduce yourself really quick and then just talk about how Pinterest is different from other platforms, I think that'd be awesome just to kind of give an overview of how you're really differentiated in the marketplace.
Yeah. So my name is Leon. I lead product here for our home feed and our feed and recommendation products. So also like following as well. And so, yeah, I think the way to think about, hey, how is Pinterest different from other social networks? It really helps to think about first, like who our pinners are and who our audience is on Pinterest. So we're one of the biggest like media platforms on the planet. We have over 200 million active users, so a huge like base of pinners, and we're very well penetrated, especially in the US. We actually have more like monthly active users than even Twitter does, and 8 out of 10 moms in the US are actually on Pinterest. So we have a huge audience. But what really differentiates, I say, like our audience from other social platforms is why that audience like comes to Pinterest, right? We know that pinners come to Pinterest to like take action, find inspiration for their daily lives. For example, like one concrete thing is just, the percentage of people who come and shop on Pinterest. We actually see that the average pinner has 5 times the shopping intent to purchase an item as any other platform. And we actually see that, over half of our pinners today actually say that they use Pinterest to help, make shopping decisions on the platform. So there's really a lot of intent, in our pinners to come here and actually like find something to that they can actually do in real life. And so, knowing this about our audience, knowing that we have like this massive audience and knowing that they're coming here to try to inspire themselves, it really impacts how we think about how we build our products, right? So, most social networks, actually like Facebook has been very public about this. They say that, they'll emphasize friends and family first. They'll say that, the people that we recommend, the kinds of content that you'll see, will prioritize like the people the people that, you're closest with. But that's absolutely the opposite of how we think about, what we're doing on Pinterest. Whenever you see like content getting recommended or us recommending profiles to you, you'll rarely ever see us like recommend your friends and family. And instead, what we're trying to do on Pinterest is connecting pinners with businesses and creators, because we know that that's what pinners actually want to see. They want to see businesses. They want to see creators. They want to see their content, so that they can take action on that stuff. And then I think the other aspect of Pinterest that's pretty unique from other platforms as well is just how people come to discover content. So we think of ourselves just as much as like a feed product as we do a search engine. We see that like pinners pretty seamlessly change between, using our feed products like home feed and following tab, and then switching to something like search and vice versa. And so as a result, like businesses and creators have really 2 avenues to be successful. One is like becoming very viral through our feed product and seeing massive amounts of like traffic in a short period of time through feeds. And the other is like getting consistently surfaced through the evergreen like results of search. So really it's like both a feed and a search platform. And then I think like the final point I really want to make here is that like Pinterest is a platform in which businesses and pinners like really live seamlessly together. Like pinners want to find the best ideas from businesses, and businesses want to deliver their ideas to the most relevant pinners. And so really our job, at Pinterest here is to always make sure that we're improving our ability to like connect businesses with pinners. And so I think that's like a pretty unique aspect of like what we continuously like focus on the product.
Awesome. Yes, Leon, thank you for that. I think that's a really good insight into like just how incredible Pinterest can be for both creators and businesses and brands and influencers. And I think the one thing that you said there that's really, really interesting to me particularly is the intent, right? Like you talked about the people coming onto Pinterest for ideas and shopping. And I think I saw a stat the other day that like 1 in 2 Pinterest users have reported that promoted pins or pins have led them to make an actual purchase on a website. So, I mean, like you said, 50% of those people with intent to purchase been actually purchasing products, which is just incredible, especially for a lot of like influencers and businesses who have built this really strong following on Pinterest. So anyways, yeah, thanks for the overview. I really appreciate that. Okay, so now let's get into some actual details. And Aaron, as Aaron labeled it in our talks before this event, the art of the pin, which I thought was very catchy and cool. But let's get into the art of the pin. So Aaron, what makes for a really good pin? And how do businesses ensure that they can stand out on the feed in the Pinterest feed with their content and their pins?
Yeah, so I think the top piece of advice I'd like to give to anyone who's listening to this webinar is, we've updated our best practices recently on our business site, and Brian's going to put up a blog post shortly on Buffer's blog that will have a link to that. And so I would say that's the best place to visit for a source of truth of how to succeed on Pinterest. That being said, I think there's three easy to follow pieces of advice I can give on making a beautiful pin that have been vetted by both our creative professionals in-house and also, just from seeing who's found success on Pinterest. The first is lifestyle images are far more effective and attention grabbing than product shots. So scene pins where, it's a creator or an influencer who's walking down the street with a product is going to work much better than just that product with a white background. High resolution, high quality images will always look best, and we actually, we'll actually penalize, images that are lower resolution as they don't look as good on our home feed and other surfaces. And then I would say the third piece of advice would be, just steer clear of images that are too busy. 80% of pinners use Pinterest on mobile, and so checking out how that pin looks on mobile before you post it to make sure your messaging and your call to action and your branding looks good and is easy to digest will be super useful for finding success on Pinterest.
Awesome. Now, when you say keep your images sort of uncluttered, they should still have a little bit of text in them, right?
Yeah, so we found that text overlay definitely helps in terms of providing some context to pinners who may just be scrolling through the feed. One of the things that we're trying to work on is also provide more attribution. So while a logo may help on the pin, what we're also doing is now providing more in-feed attribution so that you can see who the creator is who uploaded that, or the brand or the business who uploaded that. So I think text overlay can definitely be helpful. We think there's a variety of things that you can do in terms of overlay where we've found success. So I wouldn't say like there's a specific magic number of words or font or placement. I would say one of the things that would be most helpful for content creators is actually creating multiple versions of a specific pin over time and testing them out and using our pin analytics feature, which is available to business profiles to see which pin performed best and using that as feedback on creative.
Awesome. Now, and one thing we talked about that wasn't mentioned yet, but just converting your profile to a business profile, right? Super important so you can get those analytics. Does Pinterest sort of rank business profiles over individual profiles? Is there any benefit of having a business profile other than the analytics that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so we provide preferential distribution to people who have claimed their business account and then who have claimed their own domain. And we'll be adding a few other features soon around claiming other types of accounts. Can't say much more than that, but we understand that as content creators spread out from blogs to other platforms, that becomes more important. And so if you meet those two requirements and you pin on a weekly basis from your own domain, then we'll actually provide some preferential distribution for your content, and we'll also highlight you as a creator or a business in a number of different surfaces across Pinterest, such as home feed. Or Leon, help me out here. Is it going to be on home feed? It's in
Yeah, you'll see this actually throughout the app. Like we're beginning to feature basically creator recommendations. So you'll see that we're going to surface profiles in a lot more areas. Right now, we're starting to roll that out on Close Up. You'll start seeing this on Home Feed. Search results will start showing more profiles as well. So basically throughout the app, you're going to basically see us starting to feature creators. So definitely make sure that, you've let us know that you're a business account.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you just joined this live stream, that's Leon Lane. He's the lead product manager here at Pinterest, not here at Pinterest, there at Pinterest on Buffer. But yeah, so he knows exactly what's going to be happening with the feed. So thanks for those insights. So back to the art of the pin really quick. I did have one more question to follow up on the content. So how does Pinterest actually rank pins in the algorithm?
Yeah, so there's largely two aspects that impact pin ranking. So The first is, it's highly relevant to the pin in that particular context. And then the second is how high quality the pin is. So for relevance, it'll depend on what surface we're looking at. On home feed, relevance means how closely related this pin is to other pins a user has interacted with. And relevance is personal to each user. So what I see will be different than, for example, Brian, what you see. On search, relevance actually means how well does this pin match the search query. And then the other surface that we have, which is that carousel of pins underneath when you do click on a close-up, is something called related pins. So relevance means how closely related is this pin to the one the user originally close-upped on. There's a number of factors which will impact quality, with some of the most important being how well has this pin been engaged with when we've previously shown this pin, and then also how good the underlying creator of the pin is historically, and the domain it links to, whether that's high quality or not. So that's really how the ranking mechanism works. I think some of the more important takeaways are, and Leon will get into this later, I think, we've launched a number of features that provide us a place for us to test your content. And so if you get high engagement to start, then that will mean your content will get syndicated out further to other surfaces. So engagement's like a huge piece of pin ranking.
Excellent. Okay, that's really good to know. I've always kind of wondered what I'm seeing in the Pinterest algorithm and like how it was ranked. Okay, so based on that algorithm ranking factor, do you have any tips for businesses and marketers how to sort of like how do you get your pins sort of looped in with these keywords and these phrases and these titles and kind of get it into the related pins like carousel at the bottom? And I guess what are some tips to optimizing your pin?
Yeah, so I think as Leon mentioned earlier, like you can think of Pinterest as two separate surfaces. On the home feed, you see recommendations that are based on your pinning history and that are frankly, I think, a little more relevant than like the Instagram, Explore tab, or a lot more relevant. I think the other surface is search, and so the best way to think about Pinterest is part search, part social. For search, it's interesting because a lot of pinners will come to Pinterest and search like fall outfits or wedding, decorations, and these are, really open-ended searches. They're not like when you go to Google and you're searching for a specific wedding vendor. So for the search portion, what you want to do to optimize is to add descriptions to your pins and boards to provide us as much signal as possible to help understand and distribute your content. We recommend adding high-quality descriptions to all of your boards and pins after you've added a descriptive title. And the feedback we've gotten from content creators is scheduling tools really help do that. So, use Buffer. I think the other piece over here is, use hashtags. So we've added a hashtag feed. So if a user clicks on a specific hashtag, through search, through a pin description, or some other discovery surface, then when a user searches that hashtag, the freshest pins with that hashtag will appear at the top of the feed. So this is another way for us to surface fresher content. For that, we recommend using both keywords and also relevant hashtags in much the same way you would use on other platforms to maximize your organic reach. And we recommend you add up to 20 hashtags per pin.
See, now if I can just ask you one question about the hashtags thing. So now, to me, that's awesome because I think there was like a back and forth in the Pinterest world of like, should you be using hashtags? Should you not be using hashtags? What kind of hashtags? Now, do you recommend that people put those directly within the description? Is there like a best practices for adding hashtags?
Yeah, and so I think part of the question around whether to use hashtags or not is, frankly, it's a newer product. Leon, I think you actually launched this last year. So do you want to take this about like where to put the hashtags?
Yeah, absolutely. So add it to the descriptions, but preferably like add it to your new pins. Basically, we created the hashtag product primarily because like pinners were asking for ways to like discover like new content, and we thought like hashtags were just like a great way to like be able to expose like users who are searching for like the freshest content to be able to like show them that kind of content. So in descriptions on new pins are where they like are most effective in terms of like best practice for hashtags. Generally like Pinterest is pretty like topical, so basically like things that are like relevant and trending hashtags are like always good to use. So yeah, basically like think about it in terms of like, hey, the pinners who come to these feeds are looking for the latest trends and some topic, whether it be like summer outfit or Halloween ideas, things like that. So try to like tag those pins with your newest pins with relevant hashtags related to it.
Cool. Yeah, and Aaron, we talked about this. And this is going to be in the blog post on our Buffer blog here in the next day or two. But one of the tips that you mentioned for users is to start thinking about trending topics even before they start to trend. So let's say it's summertime or there's a holiday or event coming up. Make sure you're creating content or tagging or pinning content around that theme sort of in advance, right? Leading up to the days of the holiday or the event, so that you can sort of gain traction and start to get seen before the event actually happens, and maybe not waiting until the day of, right?
Yeah, I mean, for us, like one of the things that we're working on, and Leon will get into this later, is using your followers and this new discovery surface area called the following feed to activate new content. So it does make sense to pin stuff like day of or in the couple of days before the event. But what we've seen for publishers and content creators and businesses who found the most success on Pinterest is, thinking ahead from a calendar perspective and seeing what are the big tentpole events, whether that's back to school or Mother's Day or Christmas or Thanksgiving, and really putting up content, anywhere between even up to 8 weeks in advance. And what we've seen is for when a lot of these events do come into play, a lot of the searches on Pinterest actually shift towards those events. So Mother's Day was recently, a huge portion of our Pinterest traffic actually shifted over to Mother's Day related content during that week, and publishers and other content creators who didn't put up content there saw their engagement and impressions drop during that time.
Yeah.
Insider tips. I love it. Go ahead, Leon.
Yeah, and just like keep in mind that like one of the primary actions on Pinterest is to save for later. So like we're pretty unique in that like pinners do like, especially for like seasonal events, they'll come like searching for that stuff like months in advance because they want to start preparing and saving like a huge list of things to like start preparing for.
Right. See, that save for later thing is such a unique part of the Pinterest platform. I love it. Cool. Yeah. Thank you for diving into that part with me. I just had, that's more personal selfishness about how to use the Pinterest platform. So thank you. Talking about the kind of tangenting a little bit related to that topic, is there a best practice of like when, how, where to pin? Do you have a posting frequency or a pinning frequency sort of recommendation, or where, like, maybe you can dive in there for a sec.
Yeah, so we really want people to be pinning, daily if possible, weekly if not, monthly if not weekly. But I think weekly is really the sort of touchstone that we're looking for. I think consistent daily activity is preferred over coming to Pinterest once a month and dumping all of your content on there. And again, I think scheduling tools really help you space out your content calendar. We recommend prioritizing pinning content from your claimed and owned domain because we value your skills as a content creator first and foremost. I think outside of that, we also, again, value your skills as a curator and understand you want to save and pin content for others. So for us, publishing consistently is the path to success. I think on Pinterest, it's probably a little less important to think about like what time of day to pin versus on Instagram and other places. I think as long as you're doing it daily and you're not doing it in a spammy way where you're putting up 20 pins at once, I think that's the behavior that we want to see. Again, with our new following feed feature, what we're doing there is it's a pure chronological feed of content from people that you follow. And so you should also think about the pinner experience as they're consuming content from their following feed. They obviously don't want to see like 20 pins from you of slightly different images that link to the same URL. So I think, again, spacing that out over time would be best. The other piece of feedback here around like how to pin would be it's better to have a smaller number of high quality Pinterest focused images instead of a large quantity of more general photos. So choose your photos with your audience in mind. Share multiple photos that you think will resonate. But again, like there's a balance between testing out your creative and seeing what performs best. and linking too many things back to the same article. So keep it authentic. Don't be spamming, and use pin analytics to get an insight into what types of creative perform best. Yep.
Quick question on that one, really quick, Aaron, if you don't mind. So like when you're scheduling out content, right? So if I'm a influencer or a brand, let's say, and I have 5 pins that I want to share to the Pinterest platform, I'm following your tips and I'm pinning daily. Do you all rank? Do you prioritize pins that we send out? So like you said, timing's not as important, but if I have 5 pins going out in the same day, let's say, does the algorithm sort of prioritize those pins in any way, or is it just based on quality, or is there like a sort of system for like order or ranking of pins that go out?
Yeah, I can talk about this. I mean, like basically the following tab is like purely chronological. So basically whatever comes in last will be the first to appear at the top of the following tab. And then from there, we basically look at like, okay, which one of these pins like got the most engagement from the following tab, or which one of these are doing well. And those are the pins that get like prioritized for engagement after that. So following hashtags chronologically ordered, everything else, it's basically like the stuff that gets prioritized is the stuff that shows like early engagement.
Okay, cool. So it sounds to me like think about how it's going out, but at the end of the day, the most quality content, the most engaged content is actually going to win no matter what.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Aaron, sorry, I know you had another thought before I ask the next question.
Yeah, I think just wrapping up like the art of the pin section, for us, like 2 other things to emphasize here. We have recently changed our guidance around what our ideal aspect ratio is. So it's 2 to 3, 600 by 900 pixel minimum. And one of the changes that we've made is for a lot of bloggers and content creators, giraffe pins or like extra long pins were really popular. We think that those pins lead to a worse pinner experience because it could get cut off. It takes up a lot of screen space. And so going forward, we're actually going to be penalizing distribution for those types of pins. So just one little pro tip for bloggers out there.
That is a pro tip, because I feel like, before it was, create them as big as you possibly could, or as long as you could, right? Because like the Pinterest feed will show the whole thing. Like, so now you're going to be actually cutting off pins that are too big.
I don't think we're cutting them off, but you'll see them less, and they'll take a hit to their ranking if it's not 2 to 3.
Awesome.
Yeah,
so
basically,
one more time for our viewers. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, John, if you deviate like very far away from that guideline, then you will see like down ranking, just because like we've seen that users really enjoy that like 2 to 3 like aspect ratio. And so that's what we're like trying to keep on the site.
Cool. Good to know. That's why we're here today, just sharing tips like that so businesses can know going forward. Aaron, thank you so much. The art of the pin. And then, like we said, the full post will be out on the Buffer blog. You can rewatch this video, and then we're going to have a ton more tips directly from the Pinterest team on that post. So, okay, let's move over to the board, the art of the board, if we're going to continue the theme of the art of. Leon, I know you're going to help us out with this side of the coin here. So let's start off with like kind of overview. How does Pinterest factor boards into the overall algorithm and into a business profile sort of success?
Yeah, so I think like one concrete way to think about, how do we use boards is to think about like, so Amazon has this product called like customers who bought this also brought this feature, or like basically like customers also added this to their shopping cart. Like you'll see, for instance, like I was on Amazon the other day. I was like looking to purchase a new rice cooker. After I added that rice cooker into my cart, like Amazon then recommended to me like other things to buy, like a rice washing bowl and a rice container, right?
That's my favorite Amazon feature. I love that feature.
Yeah. Then you just like end up buying all these things like unnecessarily. So it's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, the way they're able to do that is they actually look at like, thousands, millions of different shopping carts that probably have added this exact same rice cooker and looked at like, okay, what are some other products that people, have bought in addition to this rice cooker, right? And so you can really think about, drawing an analogy like that we use like boards in the very similar way to how Amazon uses shopping carts. So basically, if you create a board of kitchen appliances, and someone repins like one of the kitchen appliances from your board, there's a good chance that we're going to recommend more kitchen appliances to that user off of that board. And the reason we do that is because we think of boards like basically as a group of pins that is not only like topically related, but is also like related in terms of it really reflects like the specific taste of a user or a brand or things like that. And so like when you like repin an outfit or a recipe or a travel destination, for instance, chances are we're going to look at the board that pin came from and then recommend you like similar outfits, recipes, or destinations like off of that board. And so with that, like boards matter a ton to us because they really help us like connect tastes. And lets us like recommend more like relevance and similar ideas to you. And so when basically we use boards as a signal of saying, hey, when a pinner like puts these two pins together on a similar board, that's basically saying that these two like items are related somehow. And because we have like billions of boards throughout Pinterest, we're literally able to like use that signal throughout all of our different like discovery, recommendation, search algorithms. Like boards are basically used in every place you see a pin, there's something that considers like the underlying board and how that's like grouped together with like other pins. I would say it's probably like one of the most critical aspects of like how we think about like discovery.
Interesting. Okay, so I did not know that. So what I'm hearing now internally within like how you rank pins and show pins to people, it's mostly based on, or it's somewhat based on the content that's actually within the board itself, right? So is there other ways to optimize the board other than just like the content you choose to put in the board?
Yeah. So like, I think like one thing I just want to talk about real quickly is just like, okay, like, how do you like group these boards together like in an optimal way? Because I think like that's really like the most important like part to think about is like, okay, at the end of the day, you can do all these like things for how you describe a board, things like that. But what's really most important is like how you decide to like group the underlying pins within a board. And I think like, thinking back to that mental model of like, okay, when you pin something from a board, we're going to show that user, or like we're likely to show the user like more pins from that board, should give you like a good mental model of like, okay, when is a board too like broad or when is it too specific, for instance? Because like on the one hand, if you're like a retailer and you create like a new board for every single item you're trying to show, well, that's probably like too specific for that specific board, right? Because if I pin like a pair of shoes, I don't want to get like recommended like the same pair of shoes just shown at like slightly different angles. But at the same time, you're going too broad with your board if like, I pin like a pair of Oxfords from your boards and you're showing me like high heels as a result. So think about, use that as like a framework for thinking about, how to like properly like group pins on the boards. Think about, okay, if someone like interacts with one of these pins, are they likely to like the later pins that I post onto that board? And then I think like, okay, in terms of like other advice for like boards, so a few things. I think like, the easiest thing you can do that's like super helpful for us is like categorize your boards. So when you go to your boards, there's like an edit board flow, and you'll see that like one of the labels you can actually edit for your board is like the category of the board. So telling us like the category of the board like is really helpful for helping us like gain a better understanding of like what that board is about and making sure that like we can recommend content from that board to the right set of people. And then along the same lines, like make sure you add like useful, specific, like human readable titles and descriptions to those boards. So we actually index all those pieces of text. We use your board titles. Like for example, if you ever like try doing like board search on Pinterest, you'll see that like all the board results are very closely related. Like we use the title very heavily in servicing like board results for that search. So definitely make sure you add a good description, a good title that's like descriptive, but definitely also make it human readable because pinners never interact with like boards when they feel like it's just like a bunch of keywords like stuffed in it. So definitely make sure that like humans actually like, will think that this description is like authentic. And then the final thing I would just say is like make sure that the boards like feel well maintained. So if for example, that you're no longer ever going to pin to a board anymore, feel free to like archive it. It's not going to affect your like followers, for instance. And make sure for those boards that you do, that are active, you're pinning like consistently to them, because the boards that we want to like recommend to users are boards that we feel like have pretty like consistent activity. And once your boards like get to, a certain size, also like feel free to like add sections to those boards to make it like easier to navigate. And so that like users can, jump to different sections and find what they want on a board.
Cool. So the sections within the boards, that's more for user experience, not necessarily how you rank boards within the Pinterest algorithm, correct?
Yeah, so right now we don't heavily use it, but at some point we definitely do plan on incorporating it as we're seeing like wider adoption. It's sections is something that like power pinners in particular like really love. It's been incredibly useful for people who have like a giant board. So it definitely helps a lot for like people who visit your board and they're just trying to get through like thousands of different pins, finding the like most relevant sections to scan through. And we're definitely like working on incorporating more of that like information into like how we like surface content as well.
Cool. Sweet. So I think one thing, thinking back when I was creating like sort of the Pinterest profile for Buffer, going into it, I think I was really confused on, I mean, it's not by your fault at all, just sort of my kind of coming into Pinterest unknowingly. When I was creating sort of the look and feel for our Pinterest profile, I was like, how many boards should I even have? Like, how many different topics should I have? How specific should I be? So do you have any tips? Like, is there a certain amount of boards businesses should have? Is there a certain amount of different topics that businesses should have? Or is there like any sort of best practices, or is it kind of whatever you think is enough?
Yeah, it really just depends on like the underlying like business or creator. I think like what matters far more than like how many actual boards you have is just like thinking back to like, okay, like at what point is your board feeling too broad or too specific? Like certainly if you're like a huge retailer, you're selling like a lot of different kinds of items, then yeah, you're going to want to have like a lot of different boards because again, what we're going to be doing here is like if pinners like interact with that content, we're going to be recommending them more content from like that specific board. Whereas like if you're like a, blogger and you're blogging about like a very niche topic, then perhaps you don't need like as many boards to encompass like, all of your like information. I would say though that like it is helpful from the get-go to have like a few boards. So don't pin like everything to one board. Like have like a few boards, available so that when people like land on your like profile for the first time, it doesn't look like just like a barren profile. Like, have a few boards like there in the first place. So it looks like you're actively like maintaining and you're like worth following in the first place.
Cool. Yeah, that's really good to know. That's kind of how I was approaching it. It's like, okay, have enough boards to look legit, but also you also need to have enough boards to where you can stay active on them all, correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Excellent. Sweet. So the last thing I wanted to ask you about boards is this idea of group boards, right? So you can contribute elsewhere on Pinterest. People can contribute to your boards. How does that play into, I guess, Pinterest success? Should businesses be contributing elsewhere? Should they have people contribute to their boards? How does Pinterest think about that?
Yeah. So we originally built group boards to help people like collaborate together on projects. And so I would say that the way that you should be using group boards is like, for if you're like actually collaborating with another like profile or pinner on something, then yeah, create a group board for it. But don't use it as a means of like, driving your traffic or gaining distribution, because that's not the like original purpose of group boards. And absolutely like something that you'll be seeing over time is that like group boards will become like a less effective strategy for gaining traffic. We're actually starting to kind of, downrank some of the content coming out of group boards just because we see that like users like to see content from people they're like explicitly following rather than like seeing content from all the collaborators with the people they're following. So we're definitely trying to promote like, content more from like the boards, the users that users are explicitly like following rather than kind of like the like collaborators. So yeah, use group boards if you're like collaborating on a project, but like don't try to think about it as a way to boost your traffic or things like that.
Cool. Good to know. Yeah. Thanks for sharing some insight into that one. So last but not least, I'm going to open it back up to both of you. And I just want to thank everyone for being here with us today. We're going to take some questions in a second. So if you have questions for Aaron or Leon, please feel free to drop them in the comments. Otherwise, like I said, the blog post will be out on the Buffer blog. You can leave comments there. We'll respond to you directly. So either way is good with us, but we'll open up some questions in a second. I kind of wanted to end sort of some key takeaways from this presentation and this event. First of all, any tips to grow your followers or increase traffic on Pinterest that we haven't talked about yet today? Like what are things you're seeing with the most successful businesses on Pinterest that they're doing in order to really sort of grow their followers and increase traffic to their websites, even though I know we kind of just covered everything in detail. Yeah. Is there anything extra?
Yeah, so I can like take this real quickly. I mean, by far the things that will like ultimately determine your success, creating like great pins, organizing them into like great boards. But moving forward, like something that you should definitely do is the most important thing is actually like letting us know that you're like a creator in the first place. So like something that I like briefly touched upon is that like, pinners come to Pinterest like looking for creators. And that's something that we're like emphasizing much more in the app. Like again, as we're in the next like few months, you're going to be seeing all sorts of places where we're featuring profiles, featuring content from creators. And that content isn't going to be coming from like regular like people that are just using like Pinterest for themselves, right? So the first thing the most important thing that you need to do is like let us know that you're a business, that you want to get your content like distributed, so we can put you and feature you in those placements. And there's really like three things that you need to do in order to like let us know that you're someone trying to get distribution on our platform, right? The first thing is to just sign up for like a free business account. Let us know you're a business. Let us know that you care about your traffic. The second thing is to then claim your website. So tell us that you own the content that you're trying to distribute on Pinterest, and also like by claiming your content, we'll be able to feature your profiles more on like the pins that we see coming from your like website. So once you claim your content, we know that content is yours, so we feel like much better about like featuring your profile on all the content that belongs to your domain or your website. And then the final thing I would just say is like make sure you're like pinning consistently as well. So as like Aaron has touched on before, make sure you're pinning at least on a weekly basis, because the profiles that we want to like show pinners are ones that are like active, that we know will be creating like new content. And so creating content weekly allows us to know that if we feature you, you're going to be delivering value to those like pinners that like find your profile. So again, to summarize, like get a business account, claim your website, and also pin on a weekly basis, especially bringing in content from your website, because we actually want to see the content that you create.
Excellent. Aaron, any on top of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Leon hit the three pieces of guidance that will really help people find success on Pinterest. I think, just adding to that pin weekly point, I think, we understand not everyone may be creating content for their website on a weekly basis. And so, bringing in content and from other platforms, from, other places where you're creating content is a way to fill in those gaps. And, we want to make this as easy as possible. And so, over time, there will be additional features that will allow people to also claim other accounts and get credit in that way as well. So, I think those are the three pieces of guidance: claim your business account, pin weekly, and sorry, what was the last one, Leon?
Yeah.
There we go. Awesome, cool. Thanks so much for taking the time out to chat with us, Brian, and looking forward to seeing the blog post go up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Leon and Aaron, for being here. I appreciate everyone who joined us today to watch too. Facebook Live coming at you. So thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you all soon. I hope you have a great day.
Bye. All right. See you later.